And thank you for joining us for the Building Code of Australia and Reference Standards presentation, where we endeavour to help you understand a little bit about the Building Code of Australia itself and the Australian standards and the context of the relationship between them. Firstly, a little bit about the building and construction industry in Australia. Without doubt, there was definitely a stalling of activity in 2009 and 10. However, it has proven to be quite a resilient industry, rebounding in 2010-11 to now be worth approximately 8.5% of Australia's GDP. Over the last 5 years, revenue has increased at a rate of about 5% per annum in that period. And you can see that it employs a large number of Australians in a large number of organisations. So what is the BCA? The Building Code of Australia provides a nationally accepted set of technical requirements for all areas of building. It is developed by the Australian Building Codes Board on behalf of all state and territory governments and the federal government of Australia. And in fact, the BCA itself is given the status of building regulations in all states and territories. A little bit of detail. The BCA is actually a performance-based publication that covers a wide range of topics. It's comprised of 2 volumes, volume 1 being for commercial buildings, so it's class 2 to 9 buildings, and volume 2 being for residential construction, which is for classes 1 and 10 buildings. Volume 2 residential construction is also known in Australia as the housing provisions, and it has 3 main utility points. One is that it is written in plain English. The second is that the document itself follows a typical staged flow of residential construction from site prep to completion. And there is a lot of commentary and diagrams included within that volume as well to help explain the various clauses. One of the questions we are frequently asked is, how does the BCA relate to Australian standards? It's probably wise for us to start with a bit of a definition of what an Australian standard is first, and that is, it is a good practice publication that is developed by industry experts. The BCA itself references over 150 Australian standards. So what that essentially means is that any building work that complies with the referenced Australian standard will in fact result in your work being deemed to satisfy the relevant BCA performance requirement. So to understand the BCA itself, so the regulation, and how you can go about meeting the various requirements within that regulation, it's helpful to actually have the BCA and the standards in one online service, and that is what we're going to be talking about for the remainder of this presentation, is the BCA plus Standards service. If at any time you're ready to learn more about this service than I'm going to present today, feel free to visit this link here at the bottom of the presentation. So what is the BCA plus Standards service? It is essentially an anywhere, anytime access portal to both volumes 1 and 2 of the Building Code, all 150 referenced Australian standards, BCA bulletins going back to 1997, and BCA amendments going back to 1988. And the easiest way, I think, for us all to understand what this actually means is to see a live demonstration. So we'll do that now. Once you log into the BCA plus Standards service, you're presented with this screen. And from here, you can interact with the service in one of 2 ways. You can either browse the volume of the BCA in which you're interested, or you can actually perform a keyword search. So let's browse a volume at first. So we select, in this instance, volume 1 of the BCA, and you'll see that on the left-hand side, all the section headings appear. And all you need to do now to understand what is actually in each section is to click on the section of interest. So we'll click on definitions. And immediately on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that the content for that section will appear. within that content you can see that in this instance an Australian standard is actually referenced. If we click on that reference, it brings up the relevant standard. We click on that and it brings up the standard itself, the full text, not an extract, it's the full document. So let me just scroll to the top and you can see, here it is. So that's how one would interact with the service, by browsing the BCA itself and seeing what Australian standards or indeed what BCA content is relevant for that particular job at hand. You can also, as we mentioned, do a keyword search. So let's search volume 1 for timber. And you'll see that within volume 1 the word timber appears in all these various clauses and sections. So we'll choose one, rating, and you'll immediately be presented with the content of that selection on the right hand side, and as you can see all the sections and headings on the left hand side. Again, you can see that in this particular section an Australian standard is referenced, or a number of standards are referenced, but let's just click on one, and again we're taken to the PDF that was referenced. We click on that, open it up, and there is the full Australian standard that is referenced in that section of the BCA. So that is how the service works. It is essentially of value for any builder looking to obviously comply with the Building Code of Australia, but to have the resources at hand, the Australian standards at hand, that when followed allow your work to be rated as deemed to comply with the relevant part of the BCA. The BCA plus Standards service is in fact one of a family of 3 services. We also have the National Construction Code plus Standards and the Plumbing Code of Australia plus Standards. The National Construction Code is comprised of volumes 1 and 2, as we've indicated in the BCA plus Standards, but also volume 3, otherwise known as the Plumbing Code of Australia, so that you can see that each of these services is relevant to a different type of builder and can be made available as and when required. Thank you very much for your time, and as I said, if you would like to get more information on the BCA plus Standards service, simply visit this link at the bottom of the presentation and you'll be taken immediately to